With our focus on Asia, we turn our attention to the second most populated country in both Asia and the world, India. Some 20 million of the nearly 1.5 billion citizens call themselves Catholic. That's just 2% of the entire country. And as Rizal just reported, they face many religious liberty challenges. John Prabhudoss, the chairman of the Federation of Indian American Christian Organizations, joins me now to discuss. John, thank you for being with us. India has been designated a country of particular concern by the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom for a third year in a row. That means the government has engaged in or tolerated particularly severe violations of religious freedom, including government restrictions and social hostility. Can you give some more specific examples of these violations?
The violations are very specific to religious minorities, basically the Abrahamic faith. They see them as an outsiders, and there's a Hindu nationalist movement have been sweeping the country in the last 15, 20 years or so. Now it has come to a very dangerous tipping point. I would consider that India has gone to a point of no return at this stage.
Wow.
But we have, even though a smaller percentage officially are Christians, practically speaking, there's more than 100 million people that follow Christian faith in one form or the other in India.
In a non-denominational way or an unorganized church?
Yes, all included. You will say about 100 million or so, and they are all facing a life-threatening situation because of the political movement. And if you see what has happened in Sri Lanka, and that's the what happened in Sri Lanka 10, 15 years ago is what's happening in India now.
Tell us a little bit more about the Sri Lanka issue.
The Sri Lanka issue was mostly an ethnic conflict dominated by the Buddhist militant political nationalism. And in India, it is being the Hindu militant nationalism, Hindu nationalism. Now, when we think about Hinduism, we don't think about militants. We think of yoga,
Very
we think
peaceful.
of vegetarian food and things like that. But there is a very violent segment within the Hindu faith that that goes political nationalism, that say there's the land of India, from Pakistan all the way to Sri Lanka and to Burma, is a land only for the Hindus. And then interestingly enough, this organization that started 120 some years ago was modeled after Himmler's organization, the SS. They called it in India the RSS, and they are in power today.
That's significant and I think concerning. What has been the international response then to the religious persecution in India that you describe? And what are the changes you think the international community needs to make?
Now, unfortunately, the leadership, the governmental, international government leaders, elected officials in various governments, wanting to sell their products to India. And India has plenty to buy because the manufacturing for the last few years, for several decades, have been lagging behind China and other countries. And so India has a huge market. Now, U.S. wants to sell arms, like Secretary Blinken the other day said, with the Indian foreign minister and Washington, basically said, well, we are very concerned about everything that's happening in India, but we want to do this with you. We want to sell these arms to you. That's troubling because that happened. This is not the first time that has happened in the history. This has happened in Central Europe in the 40s, in the 30s, 1930s and 40s, and that's happening, repeating itself in India. Interestingly enough, though, there is an organization called Genocide Watch in Washington, headed by a professor in George Mason University, and he has predicted that India is the second most likeliest place to have a large-scale genocide within the next 5 to 10 years. Now, he was right on 2 times in the last 2 decades, one in Rwanda, the second time in Bosnia. He was right on the point in the timeline. And now he says India is ready for it.
And so would you agree that what the State Department has done in making it a country of particular concern just isn't enough?
No, that is a very technical point. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom for the 3rd consecutive year has recommended India to be a country of particular concern, but the State Department is stalling it. They don't want to, because once you accept that recommendation, then a set of sanctions could be levied against. It's not that they will be, but could be levied against the country.
So it's a step in the right direction.
Because of that, the State Department is stonewalling all the efforts, and we are putting pressure, and members of Congress and other agencies are putting pressure to see that the State Department finally see the light.
One last quick question. The Catholic Church is the single largest Christian church in India, but it's still a very small percentage of the overall population. What's most significant about this community, and is there anything that the Catholic Church is doing to be a leader to combat this discrimination?
For the Hindu nationalists, they don't differentiate between the Catholics and the Protestant and the other denominations. But having said that, they, as you may remember, that last Christmas gift to the Mother Teresa of Calcutta, her organization, the Missionaries of Charity, its ability to receive donations from donors outside of India was taken away. Mm-hmm. And that was an assault. That shows the kind of animosity this ruling dispensation in India has towards anything that is Christian. And that Washington needs to see, because in the long-term interest of the United States, that we wake up now. Otherwise, we're going to see ourselves like what's happening in Sri Lanka, and it will be too late.
That's right.
The devastation will be several times more than what you see in Sri Lanka today.
It's a long-term interest in religious freedom as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.